Yes, my name is Uncommon Emmanuel. I'm super excited to be and to wrap up every activities that we've done on this show for the year 2025. You know how we started the year 2025, started it on a very exciting note, and also in this year we transited our followers from 12 noon to 5 p.m. Where we moved our show for effectiveness and also to serve you nothing short of the very best. We moved the program from 12 to 5, but hey, the content remained undiluted. Premium content was what we kept delivering, either whether it was 12 or it was 5 p.m. It is the show, and today happens to be the last edition of our show, and I trust you've followed us, and beyond just following, we've done justice to some of the economic issues that are bothering us as a nation and also as individuals and as businessmen, and how we've been able to break them down, simplify them, and ensure that you make meaning out of them. And hey, it's also a promise we're giving on this program that come 2026, we're taking the bar higher, and it's sure going to be premium plus. So tonight, our show will be wrapping up 2025, looking at how businesses, household, the economy, how they felt in 2025. We'll be looking first and we'll be speaking to entrepreneurs. They'll be telling us how 2025, based on the ups and downs in the economy, inflation, government policies, continuation on the removal of fuel subsidy, taxation, and the rest, FX volatility, how it impacted, and also how it's, above all, tested Nigeria entrepreneurs. Somebody once said, and I quote, he said, if you are an entrepreneur in Nigeria, he said, an average entrepreneur is a miracle worker. So how did you work miracles in 2025? That will be the first part of our conversation. Then our second part, we'll be having a guest via Zoom that will be speaking to us on the general nature of the economy as well, how it actually went in 2025, happenings and major decisions. That will be the show this evening, and that will be the last show for the year 2025, and it's sure going to be on an exciting note. I have my guest already in the studio tonight. We're looking at how 2025 tested the Nigeria entrepreneur, and he is also an entrepreneur with SL, and he'll be telling us from his personal story and also from what he has also seen in and around Nigeria. He's known as person than Caleb Akpasubi. Caleb, good evening this evening.
Yeah, good evening, sir. Thank you for having me on the show tonight.
Fantastic. We are here. Yeah. 2025 started on the 1st, and now we are here. The last day, the last show, the last episode. Give us your take as a businessman, as an entrepreneur, as an investor. How will you rate, let's take it on a general note, how will you rate 2025 when it comes to the business and the economic sector?
Okay, first of all, I want to thank you again for having me.
You're welcome.
And thank God we have actually seen the end of the year, and hopefully we are going to be in January 1st tomorrow. Okay, so looking at the business landscape and the the sectors, 2025 was very challenging here, right? However, there were other sectors that actually scaled their several businesses. But again, there are two major areas that really affected entrepreneurs in Nigeria looking at 2025, and one of it is the inflation, right? One of it is the inflation, and the other one is actually the FX exchange, looking at the price of naira, and all of that. So, and what that does is the fact that the moment there's an inflation in the economy, right? Basically, it actually increases the cost of several production. It actually increases the cost of doing business in Nigeria, right? So when you actually refer to management costs, you actually refer to marketing costs. At the end of the day, you realize that for an economy that the prices of goods and services are actually going up consistently, if you go to the market to purchase raw materials for production, you realize that you are actually going to be paying more. So at the end of the day, it will definitely reflect on the
selling price. Yeah.
Yes. So, and several stuffs like that, the price keeps going up and up and all of that. So that's a major challenge for entrepreneurs in Nigeria.
Fantastic.
Then the forex, exchange, which is the naira devaluation, for businesses that depends on, importation, businesses that depends on using equipment that you have to import, right? In that kind of, scenario, you realize that at the end of the day, they'll be paying more for their goods and services, right? Which will definitely still impact on how they manage their business, their expenditure, their overhead costs, and all of that. So what that would also do is it will reduce their profit margin.
Obviously.
Over time, and which is not really good for entrepreneurs, if you really want to thrive in business.
Fantastic. And like I said in my opener, somebody said yesterday that an average entrepreneur in Nigeria is a miracle worker, because it seems all odds are against you.
Exactly.
And in spite of these myriads of challenges, we still see our entrepreneurs thrive. Now let's look at the area of energy now, power. We saw how that also influenced and impacted businesses in 2025. Before we go over, you've talked on inflation, you've talked on FX and the rest. Let's look at power, which was also one of the key issues that we had to grapple with, especially as business people, whether corporate or even government, in 2025. Share your perspective on how energy issue was also a factor.
Okay, of course, we knew what happened in 2023, middle of 2023, where the subsidy was actually removed. And of course, what happened then was the prices of fuel, skyrocketed. So, and basically, there are several businesses in Nigeria that uses power, that uses energy.
Most, if not all businesses, if not all.
So you realize that a business that, was supposed to power a generator with, let's say, 500 naira or let's say 1,000 naira, now they are using over 5,000 naira to do almost the same work, right? So you realize that at that point, their cost of running that business is definitely going to go up, right? Looking at the transportation industry, right? So now, several years ago, if you want to move from, let's say, Benin to Lagos, you know how much it costs.
Yeah.
Compared to what it is today. So everything still contributed to the, to the increase in the power, increase in the fuel price, and what have you. So, that really had a high level of effect, even in agriculture, right? You need a lot of diesel to actually power the machineries, so that is cost on its own. Even, several businesses, so what that does is it increases the overhead cost of running that business. So at the end of the day, there's definitely going to be a ripple effect on how they affect the consumers, right? And of course, if you're a consumer and you have a business, you will definitely still take back that cost into your business, because you would not be paying high for a goods and for your basic needs, and then still allow your business to still be selling the same price. So you realize that it's actually a circle. So it has a ripple effect on several businesses as much as also the consumer.
Caleb, let's speak to you now directly. You are the real estate mogul. Let's speak to you. What part of your business was the hardest when it comes to expense? That was very, should I say, you grappled to handle the costs and be able to put it in check. But all through 2025, it's kept on going up and going up and going up. Speak from your own personal experience now.
Of course, like I said, I actually run an organization, and we have an office, right? We have an office, we have staffs, right? So, and the fact that we have an office, we need power to run the the machines and all of the gadgets that we use, and keep the company going. And also we have staffs that we pay. You don't expect to be paying a staff let's say 150,000 about 2 3 years ago and still pay that staff the same amount today, right? Because the person is going to be incurring more money to transport himself from his location to your
the
office,
yeah.
right? So what that does is it also increases how much we spend to run the businesses. So the more inflation goes up, the more it affects businesses. So there's just no two way about it. And also, inflation has a way, inflation also has an impact on interest rates, right? So, and what that also does is banks would definitely be giving out money on a higher interest rate based on the CBN policy.
They've always done that.
Yes.
And that's their trademark. It always been higher
Exactly.
and higher.
So because of that, a lot of companies like us, we could not really, take advantage of bank loans, right? We needed to outsource, or we needed to source for loans from other channels, right? Because of the increase in the interest rate. And what that does is the numbers of projects that we were supposed to do, we were not able to meet up with it, right? Because most of those real estate projects requires a high level of funding, right? So one way or the other, right, we actually got affected. But
Yeah, Caleb, on this program, we say it and we speak to the issues. I want you to say it. Okay, this area were issues for me, and I also think maybe for other persons in 2025, because I want to be more practical because of our viewers, our audience are actually watching us. As a real estate mongo, which expenses was very, very to you difficult for you to manage all through 2025, but hey, I know you were able to overcome. That's the reason why you're seated here today.
Okay, like I said, basically, we had serious expenses when it comes to marketing budget, right? When it comes to marketing, because the kind of marketing we do, we use manpower marketing, we use people, word of mouth marketing. So for that to really work, you need to compensate those people very well, right? And for you to really compensate them, you have to give them something that will encourage them to want to do the work effectively. So having to get people to market for our business was one of the major challenges. Sometimes even when we reach out to them and we give them an offer, they look at, oh, okay, what am I going to use for these expenses? At the end of the day, they realize that, it's not worth it. So, and that was a major challenge for us. However, we also leveraged on technology to be able to reach out to, a lot of prospects in our businesses. We leveraged on social media marketing and, other digital models that was able to also help us to close those gaps that we could not really have people to fill in at the end of the day.
Fantastic. That now leads us obviously to the follow-up question. Let's look at how, in your own understanding, from working around as a coach, as an entrepreneur, as also an investor, what area do you think some business persons actually did? Which area did they work on that actually kept them to stay afloat? What strategies? I know you just talked about the internet now. You've talked about social media. What other platform, what other areas were also key factor to ensure that businesses were able to stay afloat in 2025?
Okay, so one of the things we are also able to do is to track our cash flow, right? Cash flow is the money that comes into the company and what goes out. We were able to ensure that our liquidity ratio was high, being the fact that we are able to pull in more people to make purchases for us to have more inflow into the company. And one of the ways we were also able to do that was to run promos. Right, was to run promos.
Now, let me come in there because I'm curious. What of other business persons or business owners out there that couldn't get in more sales, they couldn't get in more purchase, they couldn't get more people to buy from them? How were they able to survive in 2025?
The fundamental and the basis of business, what keeps a business to survive is cash flow, right? Money is the lifeblood of every business. So as a business person or as an entrepreneur that you say you are, you must find a way around it to ensure that money comes into your business. Because the moment money doesn't come into your business, the business is dead. I always tell people, what blood is to a human body is what money is to a business, right? That's why blood flows. and that's why they call it cash flow, right? So you must, of necessity, ensure that money is always flowing to your direction as an entrepreneur, because that's the only way you can keep your business alive.
Yeah, fantastic. And I think a lot of businesses should also really consider that going into 2026. What strategies do you think businesses can also leverage on so that they can stay afloat? Because we want more small, micro, small and medium scale businesses to thrive, because the more they thrive, the more the economy is balanced, the more we see more employment, and we see the wheel of the economy is actually moving rightly. Now the question is, how can businesses, from some of the tips you've given, stay afloat come 2025, where we're already being threatened by the tax policies?
Okay, of course we're actually not here to talk about tax, but then I think one of the things that small businesses need to do is to understand the trend, to understand where the world is actually going to. And one of the things they can take advantage of is digital. You need to digitalize some of your processes. For example, you have like 2 or 3 staffs that are working for you in your business. Now, the question you need to ask yourself, what software can you use, right, to digitalize your processes to actually save you money to from paying multiple staffs, right? So what it means is, instead of paying 3 people to do the work, you can actually develop a software in your business that can help you automate that same process. For example, like I cited, instead of us trying to look for more people to pay for marketing, we needed to hire, somebody that is more skilled on digital marketing, so that we can actually scale our marketing system and the sales system in the company. So at the end of the day, we're able to do more with less amount of money, right? So that is one way.
But some persons may want to counter to say, when you begin to think of going digital, you need to spend more. You need to get these gadgets, and getting some of these professionals at times is very expensive. When you compare that with what you pay by getting your physical staff, some persons still believe that going the old way is still better.
One thing that I tell people, going digitally should not be seen as an expense, should be seen as an investment, right? And what is an investment? An investment is something you put money into that gives you return over time, right? And not overnight. So at the point of setting up your digital processes, it might take you some amount of money, but by the time you look at it within the next 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, and compare the money you would have paid these same people to do that work, you realize that you'll be saving more over time. But the first action, or the first decision to take might look expensive, but see it as an investment, because it will definitely give you return on investment.
Fantastic.
Right. So, and another thing that I also want to say here is, entrepreneurs should look at a better strategy to reduce how much they consume power. For example, in my office, I barely use generator, right? I have a solar system that
which also costs a lot.
But guess what?
To get this,
I've installed that solar system for almost 2 years, right? So you imagine I bought a generator 2 years ago, and I've been fueling that gen for the past 2 years. At the end of the day, you realize that I would have spent more money fueling that gen, and not just fueling the gen, I have to maintain the gen. There's a maintenance cost, right? That generator will cost a lot of combustion, which will lead to 1 or 2. So you realize that
health hazard as
exactly. So you realize that decision to set up a solar system might cost me money, but it will save me money over time. So entrepreneurs need to start thinking long term.
Fantastic. Let me come in here. I think you share with us 3-4 decisions that you took in 2025 that were a bit different from decisions that you took in 2024 that gave you different results in this year that's about
for my business.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, like I said, first thing first, one of the things that I needed to do was to digitalize most of my processes, right? And that really helped us to scale our business with, less amount of money. And another thing that we were able to do was to get an expert to audit our cash flow, right?
Fantastic.
We needed to look into, because business is all about numbers. Business is all about, what are you doing? What's the productivity level of this business? Because sometimes people are just carried away by turnovers. Turnover is not really business. What is business is your profit, right? So we needed to get experts to help us track all of those things and find a way to optimize, right, how we are going to be making more profit in that particular kind of business, right? So, and another thing we were able to do was to, outsource other skilled folks, like our IT department, our HR department, right? So we didn't go through the approach of having to employ these guys into the business. What we needed to do was, okay, this is something that we want to achieve in the company. We may not need them every day. We may not need them all the time. What we just needed them to do is to help us, look into our staff activities probably once or twice in a month, or look into our IT processes. So instead of employing those persons into the company and keep paying them, we just needed to, outsource whatever, resources that they are ready to bring into the company. We outsourced it, and then we were able to also achieve almost the same result, other than having to employ them into the business.
Fantastic, fantastic. Now, going forward, before we go forward, let me ask, because I'm tempted to believe that 2025 was all rosy for you, but some entrepreneurs out there will say, hey, it seems this Caleb is not in touch with realities. What were some of the challenges most businesses encountered in 2025, and how do you think a lot of successful ones amongst them were able to navigate and find their way out of these challenges?
Okay, I think I've mentioned pretty much a lot of them. The cost of doing business was more, especially when it has to do with the power part of it, because subsidy removal happened in 2023. However, it extended even till date, right? So what it means is, so that's why I needed to find a way around it by setting up a solar system in my business. So I already talked about the challenge, and I needed to figure out how yes, because as a business person, you must be thinking very fast and very smart, right? Because at the end of the day, the essence or the end goal of doing a successful or running a successful business is reduce expense and increase profit. So whatever you must do to reduce your expenses and to increase your profit is what is healthy to your business.
And it's easier said than done.
Exactly. So, and that's why I always recommend that people go for training, business training, right? Because self-development. Because sometimes you can be in a business for 10 years and the business is not going to make the required progress that it ought to make. Not because the business should fail, but the people running the business is not the issue. And also, people actually don't also fail in business. What truly happens is that they don't really know how to make the business work, right? So there is a chain reaction. So businesses are failing not because the people are actually failing, it's because they don't really know how to figure this thing out. So personally, this year alone, my personal development budget was almost 2.5 million, right? So you imagine me developing.
How much was your marketing budget? I'm just curious. If your personal development is as high, maybe your marketing will be times 3 or times.
As a matter of fact, I even develop myself more than I even put in my business, right? Right. So because
the business cannot grow beyond your knowledge.
So, I don't.
And I think we shouldn't just gloss over this. Businessmen out there currently watching us, think this is what you must learn from Caleb this evening. You must invest in yourself. When we live in a culture where people don't value education, we know what happened in 2025, where somebody came and said XYZ amount for training, and all hell went loose. People said, how can you charge this amount for training in dollars? So you are ripping the people off. And hey, he said he knew his target market. So you talked about training. So give or take, we could see between 2.5 and even 5 million to develop yourself and to train yourself.
Exactly.
Where we have businessmen out there who think that instead of investing in themselves, they will invest in property or even invest in materials. And at the end of the day, they run the business.
I always tell people there is really no risky investment, but there are risky investors, right? Because, you know, the investor, which is you, is what will determine if the investment will go the right way or the wrong way. Because the same business that you are actually venturing into, there are other people doing the same business and they're excelling in it. So the business sometimes is not really the issue, it's the person that is running the business, right? So, and that's why growing yourself is a major and a critical factor. As a matter of fact, for 2026, one of the things that individuals need to do is to set up a budget for their personal growth. Because if you grow, your business will definitely grow, because your business is a byproduct of you, right? So if you just figure out how best you can do what works will definitely work for you.
Fantastic. Before I let you go, Caleb Akpasubi, let's look at 2026.
Yeah.
We'll give or take, I think we have about less than 7 hours to go. Now, what's your aspiration? What do you aspire for 2027? Are you doubling your personal development fund? That's just, by the way.
Yeah.
What are your plans for 2027, 2026 rather? And also speak to, you're going to look to our camera, you're going to speak to that struggling businessman, businesswoman out there that's still saying, how can I come out of this quagmire, these challenges? I want you to speak words of encouragement to them and tell them what to do in a minute or less for 2026 to be better.
Okay, so first of all, let me speak to the Nigerian economy. Generally, the Nigerian economy in 2026 will do better, right? And if
what are your parameters for judgment?
Yes, first of all, if you look at Nigeria, the rate at which we import fuel has actually reduced. Why? Because of Dangote refinery.
Yeah.
And for 2026, we are going to have 2 more refineries that will definitely be built. And you know, one of the things that is actually responsible for the devaluation of our currency is the fact that we do more of importations, you know, into the country. And fuel is a major thing that we import, and that particular one has actually been taken off. So we are going to see a better, you know, progression in our economy,
and even a more stable economy.
Yes. And one thing I also advise is that, you know, there are a lot of people that are saying, I want to store my money in USD. You know, for 2026, you shouldn't do that, right? Because there'll be a high level of stability in our currency, right? It may not come down so much, but don't expect it to go up. So if you are thinking, oh, I need to convert my money so that, you know, the price of USD is going to go up, it's not going to work. Why? Because there's so much even our current government is actually doing. There's so much they are doing, looking at the tax reform, looking at, you know, several sectors they are trying to sanitize and all of that. So much is happening. And if you check the general GDP of Nigeria compared to...
Yeah, I think I'm afraid as much we'll be able to take this evening. Once again, thank you for your time. I think we already have, I guess, via Zoom who will be joining us. Caleb Akpasubi, thank you for your time, and we trust that 2026 will be a better time and your business will do very well. Thank you for your time.